Welcome to day 92 of our journey through the Bible. We focus on Ezra today, the man of God who was used to rebuild the temple of Jerusalem after the captivity of Judah had come to an end. I've included an outline of Ezra in your notes below this video. God had restructured the powers of the Middle East after the Babylonians were defeated. Cyrus, king of Persia, gave his blessing to Ezra, who was a direct descendant of Aaron, and therefore was sent to rebuild the temple. According to Ezra chapter 7, verse 6, we read these words: Ezra went up from Babylonia. He was a scribe skilled in the law of Moses that the Lord, the God of Israel, had given. And the king granted him all that he asked, for the hand of the Lord his God was on him. The journey from Babylon to Jerusalem was 5 months. When he arrived, his long study of the law of the Lord well suited him for the task that was before him. He appointed magistrates and judges to administer justice and became the central figure in Jerusalem. The first wave of exiles were all related to the temple ministry in one way or another. Those whose lineage could be traced all the way back to Aaron were used to perform the sacrifices as the altar of burnt offerings were reinstated. There's also an interesting comment that's made in chapter 2. It's about those who had lost their records. They thought they were descended from Aaron, but they didn't have a way of finding out for sure. Well, in verse 63 we read, the governor, that is Ezra, told them that they were not to partake of the most holy food until there should be a priest to consult, Urim and Thummim. These are two references to an item that was attached to the breastplate of the high priest. There seems to have been 2 stones with these names Urim and Thummim, and they were somehow used to discern the Lord's will. It's a very interesting study about how these were used throughout the Old Testament. They seem to either give a yes answer or a no answer. They somehow more than simply throwing a dice, though. There were occasions, at least one famous occasion, where they was not able to discern a yes-no answer. So clearly there was more to it than simply throwing something like a dice or flipping a coin. There's been all kinds of speculation and ideas about it, but the truth is, from the best scholarship we have today, we don't know exactly how they were used. It was certainly something more than pagan rituals that are so frequently even found today across the world, of simply tossing blocks of woods or bones, trying to find out information about the unknown. The important thing that we seem to indicate here is that the agent of the stones, that is the person who threw the stones, who used the stones, they were more important than the actual stones themselves. It was the person who used them who enabled and was the tool by which God would answer his questions. The point would be to apply this to the use of spiritual gifts today. In the Bible, the significance is never on possessing the gifts of the Spirit, but it's on the ministry that flows from the life of an individual who is used and consecrated by God. The rebuilding of the temple begins in earnest after the sacrifices, and very soon opposition arises. Letters are sent to Artaxerxes, who had followed in the line of the Persian kings, warning him that Jerusalem has been a problem in the past and that the Jews should be stopped. He orders the work of the temple to cease. But then in chapter 5, we're introduced to 2 prophets, Haggai and Zechariah. We'll review their books later on. Remember that they are contemporaries of Ezra and Nehemiah. But they have a word from the Lord that it's all right to continue with the rebuilding of the temple. And when it's discovered that they're doing so, once again a letter is written to the king. But by this time, a new king, Darius, is on the throne. He searches the records of Cyrus and discovers that the Jews were given authorization to build the temple, and so it's finally completed. You can read about the dedication of this new temple in Ezra chapter 6, verses 17 through 22. At the same time all this is going on, Nehemiah is busy constructing the wall of Jerusalem. We'll talk more about that in the next few days. Tomorrow we'll look at the last half of Ezra, where some powerful lessons are provided for us. We read today from Ezra chapter 3, beginning with verse 11. And they sang responsively, praising and giving thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever toward Israel. And all the people shouted with a great shout when they praised the Lord, because the foundation of the house of the Lord was laid. But many of the priests and Levites and heads of the fathers' houses, old men who had seen the first house, wept with a loud voice when they saw the foundation of this house being laid, though many shouted aloud for joy, so that the people could not distinguish the sound of the joyful shout from the sound of the people's weeping. For the people shouted with a great shout, and the sound was heard far away.